Hey QED Coders, this is Michael. We are talking about the Art of Immutable Architecture, and we are going over some changes to the Janaga.net open source library. Pretty fun stuff. So Jan should be joining us here very soon. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get ready for today. Hey, how do you do, Jan?
Michael, I don't hear you very loud.
No?
Do you?
Let's see.
Yeah, okay. That sounds much better.
Okay, good. Alright, yeah, checking the
Everything
levels.
all right?
Yeah, everything's pretty good. Made a lot of progress on Janaga.net over the weekend. Got kind of obsessed.
Yeah, I just saw that there was some amazing progress on Discord. Now, sorry for being not there last week. Started some preparations for moving my daughter's studio, who was a student in Montpellier, who was not could not continue there, and is continuing in Belgium. So now I have tomorrow. We did some preparations last week, and we are moving her tomorrow.
Oh goodness, yeah.
and then my wife decided that it was time for holiday. That's all very nice.
Yes. Yeah, we have to rely on family to keep us sane.
Yeah, but I thought, okay, the preparations, I will be back in time. But it was too late.
My daughter is planning a move to Colorado, so she's currently living with us. Moved back in, and we have a place already on lease in Colorado. So we are going to be loading up a truck and getting her moved in about 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
So that'll be pretty exciting. So yeah, I will be on the road on Monday. I'll have to get the exact date. I think it's the 3rd is Monday. August 3rd.
Let's see. Okay, that's no, August 3rd is a Tuesday, I think.
That's a Tuesday? Okay. Yep, okay, so yeah, it'll be the 2nd then. Yep, so yes, in any case, I will be on the road on August 2nd, so I will update the calendar accordingly.
Next week you will be there, but the week after that, no.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. No problem. No, I just went to collect the truck, rent the truck for tomorrow. So after this meeting, I'm going to sleep because tomorrow, I think 3 o'clock, we are leaving.
Very nice.
Colorado, is that far from you, or?
That is a. It'll take us 2 days to drive there with the truck.
Oh.
Okay. If you wanted to make it in 1 day, I think it's about a 14-hour drive. So it's possible, but not with the moving van. We definitely want to take it easy with the van, but. But yeah, we need to get there in a hurry.
If you want to do it in a normal way, it's 2 days.
Yeah.
No, tomorrow is only 200 kilometers. 200 kilometers going there, 200 kilometers coming back. But since we are leaving the studio, they have to check the whole thing, and then we have to bring in the van in time. So I prefer to leave early. So that gives me some margin.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's if something goes wrong, then we are too late.
Yeah, very true.
Okay.
Always have to have a mitigation plan.
Yeah. But normally, I think we'll have flat tires or things like that. That everybody will be in time. That will not oversleep. Will run out of fuel. But be okay.
Yeah, so you're going through all the things that you expect to go wrong, and so none of those will, and it'll be something else unexpected.
No. If you leave early, Murphy is still sleeping. So,
Oh, good.
depending which time zone Murphy lives. I saw on the video that you made last week that actually the InMemory Store is functional.
Yes.
So we are going back to the async programming now, the await.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Again.
Yeah. So even when using the in-memory store, it's all async, and that way, when you swap out the memory store, it's still exactly the same programming model. Yeah, and so got some good unit tests going around actually executing queries and seeing some results. So looking pretty promising. And that also kind of helps prove out the interface, so that when we implement that same interface for a store using SQLite, for example, then we know that we've got everything figured out.
Yeah.
And as an added bonus,
and then
the in-memory store uses 3 collections that map directly to 3 tables that you would want to define in SQL. So then you can just extract the things that would be string keys and turn those into a separate table, so you've got integer keys. And that'll give you, I think 5 tables. And then you've already got the queries all defined right there.
Okay. So I will have to look into that, because I really want to implement this SQLite to this implementation. I didn't get very fine to that, but okay. And then you had the ViewModel way of working again. I saw. So you're binding your specification to your properties in your ViewModel.
Yeah, so it's
so that
it's still
.NET way.
Yeah, it's maybe 1 or 2 steps shy of actually binding to the ViewModel, but at the very least, it is setting up a watch and then responding to projections that are added, modified, and removed. And so then there's just a little bit of extra work to have those events actually update your ViewModel. So what I'm anticipating is that we should be able to create another library that depends upon Janaga and depends upon Assisticate, and then implements those 3 methods to update observables in Assisticate. And then you get exactly what you're after.
Mm-hmm. The good old Assisticate comes back.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I just didn't want to bring a dependency of on Assisticate into Janaga itself. So people should be able to use Janaga using a MVVM Lite or using reactive extensions. So or reactive UI, I guess, is what it's called when you use it in that way. And so you should be able to implement those 3 methods: unadded, modified, and removed. And then turn those into whatever it looks like on the ViewModel side. And if you do it right, then you should be able to make that a generic mapping, so that then you can just kind of describe your ViewModel in whatever target environment, and then have it configure the mapping. So we'll see how that turns out, but that's the vision there.
Okay, that's great. You said that you were obsessed this weekend.
Yes.
Tell me more about it.
Yeah. Well, I can actually show you real quick the progress that I was able to make. So, nice blank window inside of LinkPad. If you've not tried LinkPad before. This is basically a really nice REPL for .NET. So you can type in. It's initially and primarily used for typing in C# expressions that are then link expressions. But you can also do C# statements, and then this gives you a way to quickly write programs. So I can say using Janaga.
Michael, we are seeing another screen, not your LinkPad.
Okay.
And there is echo.
Okay, I think I know what I did again. We're going back here. Okay, so that's that.
Now we are seeing an infinite image.
All right, so that should be... Yeah. Okay. There we go. That should be it.
Yeah. That's
okay.
much better.
All right. Let's get that zoomed in a little bit. Okay, so in order to bring these in, I need to add, not add a connection there, but references. Yeah, so I will add a reference to Janaga.net. So let's use Janaga unit test in debug. .NET 5, so we'll bring in Janaga and Janaga unit test. Okay. So now I can say using Janaga, using Janaga unit test. Okay, and then I can set up my j equals Janaga test dot create. All right, so this sets up an in-memory repository, and so then I can declare some facts, like for example, let's do fact type, the corporate namespace, so we'll do some sort of a corporate application, and we've got company. So we'll define a fact as a record. So here's our company record. So we'll just use a string identifier to identify it. And so that way I can just say wait, j.fact new company, and give it an identifier. And so that creates my my company fact. So with LinkPad, then what you can do is do a .dump on any of your objects, and then it shows you the objects in the results window. So it makes it really easy to test out code like this. So what we have seen so far is the ability to do a query. So let's suppose that in addition to companies, I have things like the office. Oh yeah, let's go with employee. So
record employee, no? Yeah.
Yeah, getting ahead of myself. So they're an employee of a company.
And the name?
Okay, so those things uniquely identify an employee. So then we should be able to say, wait, j.fact new employee for that company. Okay. So now we should be able to write a query. So first of all, I'll start with the specification. So we'll make that specification employees and company. And so given a company, I want to match using this lambda expression from employee in facts of type employee, where the employee
company equal to Contoso.
Yeah, where it's equal to that company. In fact, just to make sure that we don't confuse things. So yeah, that is the Contoso company that we're talking about here. This is just the parameter company, just any company you can use with the specification. All right, so we can select out that employee. So now let's go ahead and use that. So we'll do a await j.query from Contoso employees in company, and then we can dump them out. Okay. Oh, yeah. Didn't do my renaming correctly. There we go. So now I've got that that immutable list of employees. So each employee has the same company. So so that much I guess that was what I showed last week. I just didn't show it through LinkPad. So real quick, one thing that you can do in LinkPad is define a new visualizer. So I don't like the fact that this looks like two different company objects. I really want to visualize the fact that that's the same company and both of these employees are related to it. And so I would like to build a visualizer that's kind of like GraphViz and shows you that graph. So that might be one of the little side projects to work on here. But so in the meantime, before doing that, we want to be able to first of all, let's go ahead and fire employees so we can see how that works. So that's we're going to fire.
That takes an employee.
Okay, and so now I can put a condition right here. So so we're not from fire in facts type fire, or fire employee equals employee. So we're not any of those. Okay, and so far nobody's fired, but then if I were to say I'm not going to fire you, I'll
don't fire yourself.
And maybe
then you have a problem.
Maybe I won the lottery or something. So we'll do a date time now, and then boom. Okay, so we just have Jan. Okay, so so we've got those conditions set up, and every time I wanted to check employees and company, I had to rerun this query. So that query gives you just a snapshot in time. So what we want to do is to to have
Set up a watch.
a real-time watch. So what we can do is Jada Watch, and so we're going to watch Contoso employees in company, and now we specify this
on edit or on removed.
Yeah. So so you've got this observation. So just use that syntax there, and then we can say dot on added. And so this is going to take a projection. So that projection is just the employee. And then it's going to return some kind of identity. So and we do this async. So so we'll just for right now put in a 1 so that we can kind of see things working. And so it knows employee is an employee, so it's got that. Let's expand that out a little bit so we can see kind of what's happening here. And I thought there was a way to trace stuff in, yeah, that's diagnostics. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll create a new list of employee. So not my usual immutable list, but an actual list. And so this is the list of employees that were added. So
yeah.
So now let's dump that out, and we should see the same. Oh, I know why. That's an observer. Because everything is async, I have to do await observer dot initialized before I know that it's already run all the callbacks. So so the thing here is that if somebody were to add another employee after the fact, so here's an employee of Contoso. Then the unadded will be called when that employee is added. So it's not just a one-shot list of results. It's a live watch.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that you could see doing with that is inside of this callback, you call your ViewModel, and you add one of these objects to the ViewModel, and now you can see that on the view. And then anytime somebody adds a fact, it updates your ViewModel, the view updates, and everything is nice and live. Another thing that you could see doing with that is this right here. That could be an insert into a database. And now here you're returning the auto-incrementing ID of that database row. So this is creating a projection table. So you've got all of your data that's stored to represent the history of facts, but this would allow you to now create a projection in the database of the current state.
Yeah, and that database can be used as a kind of bridge to another application then.
Exactly. Yep. So you can use that database to do aggregate functions because aggregates over history are pretty expensive. So use that for your reporting database or for your search index. You could also use that database as a bridge to legacy applications. So maybe you've got an existing legacy application. Hey, maybe actually you literally do that uses records that have state, and so those records can be inserted, updated, deleted, and you've got a whole bunch of code that queries over those records. So one migration path for you then is to create your historical model, and then use this pattern in order to update your existing database. And then as you transition, you don't have to rewrite everything. You can still have some of your code running against the old database.
And in the other direction, add triggers to the database to add facts to the model.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and so for that, you want to have two different replicas of that same table. So if I've got an employee table that's just my current employees, then what I'll want to do is have this projection insert and update a brand new table that has the same shape as the old one, and then put the trigger on the old table, and then slowly migrate the code to start looking at the new table. That way you don't set up a cycle where you've added a fact, and so you've inserted a row which triggers and adds another fact, and keep on going around.
Yeah.
So, I talked about updating, or I'm sorry, I talked about inserting into this projection table. You can also do an on modified. So on modified,
Michael, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
to come back to that table. So if the external application, it makes a second employee table, which is actually not used by the legacy application. It's only there to use the trigger to create a fact in the historical model, which will then generate the record in the real table that is used in the legacy application. Is that correct?
I'm actually thinking you might want to flip that. So you've got the table that's used in the legacy application, and then you set up the projection, and that projection goes into a new table. And this kind of helps you walk there without taking on too many dependencies. So so now you've got that set up, and then you have to start creating facts. So one way you can do that is to modify the source code, and every time it does an insert, it also creates a fact. Or if you want to use triggers, the way that you were just describing, have a trigger on the legacy table that creates a fact. And then and so that fact will cause this projection to update the new table, and so that'll keep the two in sync, or not in sync, but eventually consistent. And then the other thing that you'll want to do is before you when you've set up that trigger, that only captures changes that happen from that point forward. You still want to go back in time, so you want to grab all of the information that was there before. So you want to have something that compares the two tables, and then creates facts for things that are different. And so it creates those facts, lets them flow through, check for differences, and if it's done its job correctly, then there should be no differences after that. So that will allow you to turn it on, start the projection running, and then inject history.
Okay.
That's the feed and seed pattern. Set up the feed, and then seed it with all of the history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about adding. Now we want to modify. So let's suppose that we don't have the employee name, because names are mutable. What we really want is, say this is the, that's the employee number. So assign their number when they're hired, and that number lasts their entire duration with the company. So then we want name to be a mutable property. So we will say fact type. And we're going to quickly get into the territory that doesn't yet work. I mean, I did a lot this weekend, but not that much. So we've got our employee, and we've got our, this is the name, so we'll call that string value. And then this being the mutable property pattern, we're going to have employee name array prior.
Yeah.
So that's keeping track of all of the employee names. And yeah, it's not syntax highlighting, which makes me think there might be a syntax error there, but I'm not seeing it. So let's just keep moving. Oh, it's probably that syntax error right there. Okay, I haven't gotten there yet. So yeah, it's not George here. So that's employee number 3. There's employee number 2. There's employee number 1. And then we should be able to say something like, you can say wait j.fact new employee name for employee Jan with the name Jan,
Yeah.
and the prior value to be a new employee name array that's empty. Or you could put a 0 in there if you like. I use that syntax because it evolves easily into having an array with some values in it. And by the way, a new feature coming soon to .NET is you should be able to do this, and it would infer it based on use. It knows that that's supposed to be an employee name array, so it would be able to infer it. Right now you can't do that unless you have elements in the array. But anyway, that's going to make things a little bit easier to do in future versions of .NET. But at any rate, we've got an employee name. So what I want to do is to get not just the employee, M-P-L-Y, yeah. The name, that word always looks misspelled to me. But then you should also be able to get to the current name. And so the current name will be
employee.name.
Yeah, so if you look at employee dot, you just have company and employee number. Employee name is not a property of the employee record because it's mutable. So instead, what we have to do is find a way to compute the current name. And so what we can do is get the facts of type employee name, where employee name dot employee is equal to employee. And then from here, I want to do a select in order to project this down into the value, and then get the first or default. So that way it just selects one name, just one of the strings. So that comes out as a string. And if I wanted all candidate names, excuse me, then I would just I would leave these two off, and I would stop right there. Oh, there's one other where clause that I need to add. I just want the ones that haven't been superseded. So, so this is going to get a bit nested, but we'll start with nested and we'll simplify things a bit. So we want to know when there are not facts of type employee name. And we just want to know that there are not those where, and that one's the next employee name, where next dot prior contains employee name. Yeah, so it's a bit nested, and it's also I've transitioned from the link syntax into using extension methods, but let's see, I wonder why it's not. Oh, one more parentheses. Okay. So what that where clause there is doing is it is looking for it's looking for the next employee name, and that's an employee name whose prior array contains the one that I'm looking at here. And so if I don't find any of those, then I know that this is a most recent, this is a current employee name.
That's one of the leaves then.
Yes, exactly. And so that's just looking for all the leaf nodes of that employee name tree. And so this is selecting the values of each of those candidates and just getting one of them so that you get back a string. But if I wanted to be able to edit this string, so present it in such a way that the user can type in a new one, then I'll need that much of it. So I'll need all of those candidate facts themselves. And then I can present to the user, oh, there's been a concurrent change, there's been a conflict. So, I have 2 or 3 candidate values. And so here are all the possible names. Do you want to pick one, or do you want to type in a new one? And then it creates a new employee name where the prior is that entire array of 3 or 2 or however many candidates there were. So that syntax can be cleaned up. We can work on some of that syntax cleanup, but the idea is that link is powerful enough to express that. So it's just going to be a matter of giving good examples and education, and maybe even some helper libraries in order to make this make a lot more sense. But yeah, somebody that hasn't read the book looking at that, they're like, what are you doing there? That's craziness. I know, because I've written code like that and given it to my team, and they're like, can I just update the database? And say, no, insert only.
It's getting used to it.
Mm-hmm. But if you want to be able to update the projection, you should be able to do that. So now this right here is a it's a projection. So we'll call that projection, and so you can see projection has employee and name. So we can add that employee from the projection, and that's just that one right there. But the projection also has the name. So here I'm going to want to do an insert into a table that has employee number and name as columns. And so I can get the employee number right there, and then I can get the name right there. So I will say insert row, employee number, and projection name. And presumably that will return the ID, and I can just use that right there. So so now you're inserting your projection table, and you're inserting a mutable property into it. So you also want to know when the name changes. So for the same employee, so nothing up here has changed, but if you get a brand new employee name, then that value is going to change. And so that's when you'll do the dot on modified, and that takes two parameters. One is, it's kind of hard to read there, but one is the integer ID that you just returned here, and the other one is the projection. So we'll have the ID and the projection. And so now we can do update row. And so we have the ID of that row, and we have the projection name. And so whatever ID was returned when it called on added, that's what it's going to use when it calls on modified. Oh yeah, and that's also async. Since those methods don't exist, I can go ahead and put a weight in there, and it doesn't know any better than that actually is what you would be seeing there. So, by the way, that data type right there is generic. So if what you had wasn't an integer ID, but something else, you just return that something else, and then whatever that type is, that's the type that'll be used here. It's just mapping the identity from one to the next. And so there's one other method.
It's on delete then.
Yep, yeah, I call it on removed. So yeah. Added, modified, removed, as opposed to inserted, updated, deleted. And that's... Yeah, actually, when I first started thinking about this, I was thinking insert, update, delete. But I decided not to. Primarily, it's me. I don't want insert, update, delete. But this is adding, modifying, and removing projections, results of a specification. You're not actually updating or deleting anything. It's just the projection has changed. So. A slight semantic difference there, but it makes me happy. So this one just takes the ID, and then you can say wait, delete row ID. Because the projection is removed, I can't give you the projection. There's no current value of it anymore, but I just give you back the ID that you used when you first added that projection. So that is the new watch syntax.
There, semicolon too much.
Yes.
Yeah. So we could just implement this insert row, update row, delete row, instead of putting it in the database. Just show the result.
Yep. Yep, so if you have those three modifying a view model, then they're not going to be asynchronous. So you would just create these mappings here to return completed tasks, so they don't actually await anything. I was thinking about having these called onAdded async, onModified async, onRemoved async, and that way you could have the regular onAdded be the synchronous version. But I decided against that because it's too easy to forget. And then you make a mistake and you haven't awaited a task and things go bad and you can't really tell until something just gets out of sync. Or an exception is thrown and you never see it. So that kind of forces you to think about your async stuff, but it also gives you one place where you can decide, you know what, this is just a synchronous operation. I'm going to go ahead and give you a completed task right here. So, shout out to Chris McGinnis, who is somebody that I'm working with right now. I showed him an earlier version of this, and we kind of hashed things out, and this is what we eventually came up with. So, one final thing here, in addition to setting up a watch, which gives you back an observer, you can say observer.stop, which is also awaitable. And then that will await whatever operations are currently happening. Then when things settle out, it will stop that observer, and so no new information. So if you were to fire some more employees here, then you would never see that, and you wouldn't delete them from your database.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is the entire API surface area that you need. So you can create facts, you can query, you can watch. There are a few utility functions that I'm going to be adding, but I think that's the primary surface area.
And it's also very similar to the way it works in JavaScript.
Yes. The JavaScript version specifications don't have projections, so you can't do this, at least not yet. I am going to be adding that. And so since you don't have that kind of projection idea, then there is no unmodified in the JavaScript version, because it's just that specification is just returning facts, just raw facts. So those facts are added and they're removed, but there's nothing to modify. So when I create that capability in Janaga.js, then I'll also add the unmodified there. And I think that that capability is going to look an awful lot like how projections look in Janaga React. So I'll basically take that Janaga React capability and pull it up into Janaga. And that whole conversation we had about whether that's called specification 4 or projection 4, I think since this is a specification, I think I'm actually going to keep the name specification 4. It's just specifications will have the additional capability of being able to generate projections. We'll take the match specification functions, combine it with specification 4 in a. So I'm thinking in Janaga.js you should be able to call j.match right here inside of a specification 4. So this would. Basically, these lines right here would turn into a j.match. So type is employee, company is company. So that's a j.match. And then this becomes a, such that not exists. and then continue on with that specification 4 syntax of declaring the employee and the name fields of the projection. So still not 100% sure that I'm going to keep the name specification 4, but if the whole thing is a specification, it's starting to sound a bit better.
Then we don't have to change the documentation in the JavaScript side.
Right, yeah. Yep. So there's one other use case for this syntax that that I think is pretty exciting. So so imagine that this code that you just wrote here, this is the entire source code for a microservice. So up here, instead of Janaga test, you're doing Janaga client.create, and you are giving it the URL of some node in your decision substrate. So you're saying, I'm creating a client, that's my server. So that's, oops.
Exactly 45 minutes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I should set a timer so that I know to stop talking. So yeah, you do a Janaga client.create, give it the URL of a node in your decision substrate, and then it that one microservice connects to that node. And then you set up a specification for a circumstance, a situation that you want that microservice to react to. So, for example, if there's some additional processing that you need to take when an employee is fired, like you need to cancel their authorization. So you would have another successor to fire called Authorization Canceled, and then you would write that specification looking for employee fired where not exists authorization canceled. So it's like, there's work I need to do. And then on added, that's where you do that work. And so you're doing that work asynchronously. You await the result. When you're done, right inside of here, you await j.fact authorization canceled. So you cancel you call the third party, take their name out of the directory, and then you add the authorization canceled fact. And so that's the entire structure of your microservice, so that it's just sitting there listening for those events to happen, responding to them by taking action, and then reporting its results. So you could string together a whole bunch of these and create a really nice microservices architecture. Each can be under the control of a different part of the organization. So it's the security group that's in charge of that. But we don't have HR calling up the security group every time they fire an employee and saying, "Okay, I need you to revoke his access." It's just listening for that event and firing. So it's your what's the right term for that? It's kind of your enterprise service bus. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a fancy pattern name for that. So it's not an orchestration, but not coordination, collaboration, one of those C words. So that's what I'm working toward.
It's going to be a big step forward, but that means that actually we can use the .NET client almost in a real application today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So we should if I implement that the storage in SQLite, then I could start doing some testing with Xamarin already.
Yep. Yeah, and then this tool will be really useful to you, because then you could say Janaga client create and then give it the connection string to SQLite, and then you can use this tool as your SSMS experience. So write your facts, dump the write your specifications and your queries, dump the query results, and then you can visualize them. Then once those visualizers get a little bit out of hand, then we can work on creating a GraphViz visualizer.
So then that becomes the historical model management studio.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I still want to do Factual Studio at some point in the future, but this gets us close enough that we can start using it.
Mm-hmm. And what does it take to write a visualizer here? Is it?
Yeah, that has recently changed in LinkPad. So it used to be implement an interface and do a whole bunch of it might have been SVG stuff, or it might have been bitmap. Or what? No, this is interactive, so it's not just SVG. But now the visualizer is based on Chromium, so you actually write your visualizers as HTML, CSS, web, and JavaScript, and then run those, and then LinkPad runs them inside of the frame. So I think the experience of writing a visualizer is actually going to be pretty nice, and it's probably also going to be pretty portable, because I would like to take this JavaScript visualizer that we build here and then have that available on Janaga.com, so you could just play around with the model up there, and also put that into Visual Studio Code. So you can just have an extension that points to a decision substrate, let you write a specification, and then see the results right there in VS Code.
Because to get it on the website, because if it is Chromium based, it shouldn't be a problem. But in VS Code, the VS Code extensions, how are they made?
VS Code is also a browser-based IDE. So
okay,
So yeah, there's a direct path to taking the things that you build for the web and hosting them in VS Code. In fact, the editor that you see up there on Janaga.com. So pull this over there. So let's go into. Yeah, now actually you have to go into the reference in order to get the buttons tried in your browser. But this editor right here is the Monaco editor, which is basically the Visual Studio Code editor extracted and made available as a JavaScript component.
Yeah, didn't know that.
So yeah, just take a Monaco editor, and then rather than just writing out the text, just because I did a console log right here, do something very similar to what we just did here with dump, and then you put a GraphViz visualizer down here, so we can dump an entire graph and see how all the facts are related.
Yeah.
Should be pretty nice. But in the meantime, this will work. This will get us there.
I think it's a very nice diagnostic tool.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we don't make the models too complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is one of the dangers of if you just put a connection string here, then you could just create a graph of all of the data in your database, and it would be impossible to see. But we might be able to put some safeguards in there. It's like, oh, okay, if you have more than 20 facts, let's just go ahead and consolidate those. Yeah, I can kind of see having an algorithm that searches a directed acyclic graph and is able to take a cluster of facts, a cluster of nodes in the DAG, and then kind of shrink them down into one virtual node. So you can see all the arrows that are going into anything in there just go into that virtual node. All the arrows coming out of anything come out of it, and then give you a capability of expanding those things, and that way you can use that to kind of navigate your graph. But that'll just be some fun user interface stuff to play around with.
I think I will start with that SQLite implementation. I guess that's the most interesting to do at first, and that will also learn me how to play with LinkPad.
Yeah. LinkPad has what do they call them? Not libraries or plugins, providers. Yeah, LinkPad has providers for just about any database that you would want to use. So yeah, you can just grab the SQLite provider, and you can start to see. You can just write your link queries, just regular old link against those tables, and start playing around with it that way. And it's really cool. It also has a SQL tab on it. So so far we've just been looking at the results tab, but if you write some link and then you switch to the SQL tab, it will show you the SQL that link generates. So you could actually cheat and just take the link statements that are in the in-memory provider, drop them in there, set up your Postgres tables, and then have it generate the SQL, and then just try that and see if that works. But that would be cheating. You wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. No, it looks familiar to me. I think in the past, but perhaps it was an online course where they used it, but I've seen it somewhere. But I don't remember in which context.
Yeah. The author is actually a pretty prolific conference speaker. The last time I saw him was in Australia. Yeah, this was NDC Sydney. He was presenting on neural networks, and so he has a LinkPad example that has the implementation of a very simple neural network, and he's just so used to using LinkPad as his visualizer that he was able to do this talk really well and demonstrate the concepts. It was a lot of fun.
So you got the idea to use it for historical modeling.
Yeah, I've used LinkPad before that. But seeing how he used it so fluently within a presentation, that kind of gave me the idea that I could use this as a teaching tool and a presentation tool for historical modeling, specifically when we need other people to start using, go out there, do conference talks using LinkPad as the way of showing how it works.
Let's see where we get by next week.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the rate of progress so far. So yeah, we should be in
on your side, not on my side.
But if we've got enough of the library ready for you to then take over and start building the proof of concept of your application, then there's a chance that by the end of the year you've got a proof of concept of the app running. Especially if we use some of these migration patterns Like, okay, let's not rebuild the application. Let's just have projections that give us
interface. Yeah.
and then we can see, are these projections producing the right results? Okay, well then we kind of validate the model, and then slowly migrate the code over. The mobile application is going to be a pretty different thing. That migration path is really just for the server side. The mobile application, it really is going to take a brand new version of the mobile app, just top down. But if you've got the server side shifting its weight from one leg to another, so it's supporting the old and the new, then you can keep the API for the old mobile application up and running, and people don't have to migrate their client app all at once, and they'll still be able to work on the same data set together. So that should give you a good migration path.
That might be something to try, and then we see how flexible the whole thing is, because that's one of the most important things. How flexible can we upgrade? How flexible can we migrate? Because if we manage to have a flexible system, I think that will be one of the strong points of Jinaga in the end.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, seeing that set of 3 methods right there, that's a pretty flexible set of methods. So I think we've got that.
Because you always have other systems where you have to interface. In my case, with my application, my customers are using different other internal softwares with which I have to connect. So this is quite a flexible way, and that would allow me to make that interface to different other packages in a much easier way than I have to do it today.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Because
I think so.
Today I have to rethink it for every interface. And with the new system, I would just have to implement these three methods.
Yep. Exactly.
Let's see. There will always be some challenges and some problems, but that's nice to solve.
Indeed.
Great.
All right. Well, I think that's an update.
Yeah. So next week I'll be there. If nothing unexpected happens, but I should be able to be there.
Yeah. And good luck getting everybody moved.
Yeah. That's waking up early tomorrow. I'm gonna sleep in half an hour, and then that's gonna work out without problems, I think.
Very good.
I just cannot forget the keys for tomorrow.
Ah, yes.
So I bind them all together: the car keys, the studio keys.
Yes.
To avoid arriving there at 4:00 in the morning without keys.
Yes. I have done something very similar to that in the past. Not quite to that degree. It's just we've got a camper that we keep parked about 20 minutes up the road. So yeah, I've shown up there without the camper keys. Had to turn around, come back.
It was only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember somebody I had to take with me for more than 1,000 kilometers in the car.
Oh my!
And when I left him at his destination, he said, "Oh, where are my keys from my apartment?"
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but and that was also in the middle of the night. Okay, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan.
And see you next week then.
Yes, indeed. See you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.